Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I'm highly anticipating coming out in the second half of the year. So this is part 2 to my anticipated releases, and in this video I'm going to be covering books from July to December 2024. I think all but one of them are some sort of fantasy genre, and then we have one memoir as well. I do read more genres than this, and I feel like my anticipated releases are a bit more of a mix of different genres, but to be honest I've gone through all of the different ways that I normally find out about upcoming books, and these are just the ones that are standing out, so that's what we've got. So yeah, I'll tell you the title, I'll tell you the author, I'll tell you if it's part of a series or standalone, when it's coming out, and then some sort of like synopsis or reason or description as to why I'm anticipating it, something like that. And yeah, there are 12 books total, so let's just get into them. First up is Reckless. This is book 2 in the Powerless trilogy by Lauren Roberts, and this comes out on the 2nd of July. From the sneak peek that we got in the back of book 1, I believe that this sequel takes place just a few days after the events of book 1, and I believe that the next part of the plot will be very character focused, and I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to explore a little bit more of the world than what we got to see in book 1 as well. As this is book 2, I won't be giving you the synopsis because I don't want to do spoilers here, but if you haven't heard of Powerless, which is book 1, it is a YA Hunger Games style book where you have people with magical powers called the elites, and then you also have the ordinaries who have no magical powers. And in this part of the world that we're in, the ordinaries are actually like banned, they're banished, they can't be there. Unbeknownst to our main character, Payden, a prince of the elites is in trouble, and she basically steps in to help out, and this stepping in and helping out really just has like a ripple effect across the rest of her life. I really enjoyed book 1, I gave it 4 stars, and I'm excited for the sequel. I will say my excitement for book 2 has dampened a little bit because we did get a tiny little novella that came out called Powerful, which was like 1.5, and it took part the exact same time as book 1 but followed different characters, and yeah, I didn't find it very good. It didn't do anything for me because it took place at the same time, like we'd already seen all the events that happened minus a little bit of character work. But due to knowing what happened in book 1, because you read book 1 first, like personally I didn't get invested. So yeah, I'm still hopeful that book 2 will be as good and we will have that same adventurous style as book 1. Then there is The Spell Shop. This is coming out on July 9th and is by Sarah Beth Durst, and I think it's a standalone. It looks like it's a standalone. There's nothing anywhere saying like book 1 or part of a series or anything like that, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be a standalone. It is a cozy fantasy around making jam, I believe, and both the cover and the description is what really got me for this one. I do have an arc of this one through NetGalley, so I'm hoping to get it read before it actually comes out, and hopefully, fingers crossed, love it. The synopsis says, Keela has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, she and her assistant, Kaz, a magically sentient spider plant, have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbooks, preserving their magic for the city's elite. When a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz flee with all the spellbooks they can carry and head to a remote island that Keela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Keela discovers, much to her dismay, a nosy and very handsome neighbour who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and to help fix up her new home. In need of income, Keela identifies something that even the bakery in town doesn't have: jam. With the help of an old recipe book her parents left her and a bit of illegal magic, her cottage garden is soon covered in ripe berries. But magic can do more than make life a little sweeter, so Keela risks the consequences of using unsanctioned spells and opens the island's first ever much needed secret spell shop. And I just think that sounds so good. I really love a good cozy fantasy, and I definitely want to find out more about what's going on in this book, and yeah, it's already giving me those cozy vibes that I just really want to read. Next up, still in July, is Queen Bee by Juno Dawson, which is a prequel in the HMRC series, and this is set to come out July 23rd. And I don't think I can tell you about this book without a quick synopsis of HMRC. So in books 1 and 2, HMRC, we follow a group of friends who in current day UK were close when they were younger and have grown apart and gone in different directions in terms of how much magic is a part of their lives, and we're following them in these different parts of their lives. And in the HMRC series, HMRC stands for Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Now, if you're in the UK, you'll have a very different idea of HMRC, and if you're not, the basics is HMRC is essentially the tax office, along with a few other money bits. But in this series, that is just a front, and in reality, HMRC is run by witches and is used to keep the existence of magic a secret to the general population. And there's a very interesting plot in these books as well that I'm really loving, but I don't think that will play any part in the prequel. I have absolutely loved the first two books in this series. They're also very nice and bright. They're like right here, they always stick out. And because this is a prequel, I don't believe that there will be any spoilers at all in reading the synopsis, so let's read it. It's 1536 and the Queen has been beheaded. Lady Grace Fairfax, witch, knows that something foul is at play, that someone had betrayed Anne Boleyn and her coven. Wild with the loss of their leader and her lover, a secret that if spilled could spell Grace's own end, she will do anything in her power to track down the traitor. But there's more at stake than revenge. It was one of their own, a witch that betrayed them, and Grace isn't the only one looking for her. King Henry VIII has sent witch finders after them, and they're organised like they've never been before under his new advisor, the impassioned Sir Ambrose Fulk. A cold man blinded by his faith, his cruel reign could mean the end of witchkind itself. If Grace wants to find her revenge and live, she will have to do more than just disappear. She will have to be reborn. In this gripping, propulsive, sultry short novel, Juno Dawson takes us back to the bloody beginnings of Her Majesty's Royal Coven to show us the strength, steel and sacrifice it takes to make a sisterhood. Like, that honestly just sounds absolutely amazing, and I can't wait. And then the final release that I'm really anticipating in July is Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. This is the first book in a series, but I'm not sure how long that series will be, and this is coming out on July 30th. And honestly, the synopsis is just what sounds so intriguing, and like it could be so good. So I'm just gonna go straight into reading it. A tale for everyone who's ever fallen for the villain. When her whole life collapsed, Ray still had books. Dying, she seizes a second chance at living, a magical bargain that leads her to enter the world of her favourite fantasy series. She wakes in a castle on the edge of a hellish chasm, in a kingdom on the brink of war. Home to dangerous monsters, scheming courtiers and her favourite fictional character, the once and forever Emperor. He's impossibly alluring, as only fiction can be, and in this fantasy world she discovers she's not the heroine, but the villainess in the Emperor's tale. So be it, the wicked are better dressed, better one-liners, and even if they're doomed to bad ends, she assembles the wildly desperate villains of the story under her evil leadership, plotting to change their fate. But as the body count rises and the Emperor's fury increases, it seems Ray and her allies may not survive to see the final page. I just think this sounds so cool, and like it could be so interesting and so fun. Like, I don't know what like tone it's going to take. I feel like from the synopsis it's going to be like slightly comedic and fun, but like still have a decent plot. And yeah, I really can't wait. It sounds amazing. Then only one in August, and that is Amari and the Despicable Wonders, which is the third book in the Amari and the Night Brothers series, which is like properly called the Supernatural Investigations, and this is set to come out on August 29th. As this is book 3 in the series, I won't be reading you the synopsis, but I will say that this is a new adventure, but we're following on from the events that happened in book 2. If you're not familiar with Amari and the Night Brothers, which is book 1, we follow Amari get invited to summer school, but it's not just any regular summer school. This is summer school at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. Whilst there, she tries to figure out a little bit more information about her brother's disappearance, and that's how we start off book 1. But oh my god, like book 1 was so good. The year I read it, 2021, it made my top books of the year list. Like, it beat out so many like young adult books. Like, even as a middle grade, it held up against all these other books that I read that year too. It had one of the best plots, one of the best reveals. I would highly recommend it, and I can't wait to see where the adventure goes in book 3. Moving on to September. First up in September we have The Ending Ending Fire by Sarah L. Arifi, which is the third and final book in the Ending Fire trilogy, and this comes out September 10th. For this one, I'm not going to read the synopsis, and I also actually haven't read the synopsis myself yet. This is the one exception to the rule that I set for myself with these anticipated releases, because I haven't actually read book 2 of this series yet. However, I read book 1 and it really caught me by surprise, to be honest. I got so invested in the world and the characters, and I got so super excited about it. The reason I haven't read book 2 is honestly I used the audiobook to read along with book 1, and I'm still waiting for my audiobook hold to come in from the library, but my audiobook hold should come in middle of July, so by September 10th I'll have definitely read book 2. So I'm not worried about not being ready to read it, but I'm not ready to read the synopsis yet. Now, I don't know how much to say about book 1 because I went into it really blind. Like, I really didn't know what was going to happen, and I really enjoyed that experience. So the synopsis that I personally read before going into book 1 was: red is the blood of the elite, of magic, of control. Blue is the blood of the poor, of workers, of the resistance. Clear is the blood of the slaves, of the crushed, of the invisible. And from this, I was like, oh, like maybe it's going to be like a bit of an adult Red Queen sort of book series, like sort of book. And I don't think that's very accurate, to be honest. It does so much more than that. And it's very different, but those were like what my preconceived notions of the book were, like based on that synopsis. I just don't think they were very accurate. There is a larger synopsis for book 1. I'll put it on the screen and you can pause and read it if you want to learn more about book 1 in the series and the final stripe. You can pause and read. But yeah, I'm super excited to continue on and finish this series. Then we have the only non-fantasy of this little list, and that is a memoir, and this memoir is The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop, and this comes out on September 17th. I do think this is only one that you're going to be interested in if you've watched Gilmore Girls. I watched this show growing up so many times, like rewatched it, and I've seen it a couple of times as an adult too, and like honestly, yeah, it's a little bit flawed, but I absolutely love it. I read Lauren Graham's memoir when that one came out, and now to be getting one from Kelly Bishop, who plays Emily on the show, is really exciting, and I just can't wait to see what it's about and see what's going to be in this. So let's read the synopsis. A candid and captivating memoir from award-winning and beloved actress Kelly Bishop, spanning her 6 decades in show business from Broadway to Hollywood. With a chorus line, Dirty Dancing, Gilmore Girls and much more, Kelly Bishop's long storied career has been defined by landmark achievements. From winning a Tony Award for her turn in the original Broadway cast of A Chorus Line to her memorable performance as Jennifer Grey's mother in Dirty Dancing. But it's probably her iconic role as matriarch Emily in the modern classic Gilmore Girls that cemented her legacy. Now Bishop reflects on her remarkable life and looks forward to the future with a third Gilmore Girl. She shares some of her greatest stories and the life lessons she's learned on her journey. From her early transition from dance to drama, to marrying young, to a compulsive gambler, to the losses and achievements she's experienced. Among them, marching for women's rights and losing her second husband to cancer, Bishop offers a rich, genuine celebration of her life, full of witty insights and featuring a special collection of personal and professional photographs. The Third Gilmore Girl is warm, unapologetic and a spirited memoir from a woman who has left indelible impressions on her audiences for decades and has no plans of slowing down. And yeah, it's not my usual sort of read, but I do really enjoy a memoir from someone that I am like already familiar with, and I really hope that I enjoy this one too. Then the final one that I have for September is actually one that I've already read, and that is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, which I believe is a standalone, but it also would not surprise me if we do end up getting more books in the same world as this. And it comes out on September 19th. Now, as I said, I've already read this. I got an art through NetGalley and read it as soon as I got accepted for it. I loved it and personally gave it 4.5 stars, which for a debut is amazing, and I could definitely see myself giving other books by the author 5 stars in the future. The reason it's still on my anticipated releases, even though I've read it, is one, I can tell you about it because I honestly think it's absolutely amazing, and I think it is going to be like one of those like perfect cozy autumnal reads. And 2, because I have pre-ordered a hardcover book, and it wouldn't surprise me if I read it again this year. As much as I love ARCs and they're so exciting to get, and I do like, you know, really appreciate getting them, they are rarely formatted by the time that like I'm reading them as an art copy. So the reading experience just isn't always the easiest one. So I can definitely see myself reading it again and having just like an easier reading experience, because as I said, I do think it makes a really lovely autumnal cozy fantasy book, and yeah, I can definitely see myself reading it again. So what is this book about? Belladonna Blackthorn hasn't lost her magic spark, but she hasn't seen it in a while either. Balancing work at her beloved Luna Books with protecting it from her toxic boss who's running it into the ground, and all the while concealing her witchcraft from the non-witches around her. Belle is burnt out. Perfecting the potential of her magic is the last thing on her mind, but when her 30th birthday brings a summons from her coven and a trial that tests her worthiness as a witch, Belle risks losing her magic forever. With the month of October to fix things and signs that dark forces may be against her, Belle will need all the help she can get from the women in her life, from unlikely mentor figure and even an infuriatingly handsome watchman who's sworn to protect her. With faint family, slow burn romance and an uplifting message about self-love, this is the cozy autumnal read that you've been waiting for. And I 100% agree, especially with that final line, and I can 100% see why this coming out in September is just like the perfect time for this. Like, yeah, I can't wait. Moving on to October, we have 2 releases that I'm really excited about, one at the very start and one at the very end. So first up, we have Lore Olympus Volume 7 by Rachel Smythe, and this is the 7th book in the Lore Olympus series, which comes out on October 1st. This is a really beautiful book. It's a graphic novel and the colours and the saturation of the images are stunning. It's a modern take on the Hades and Persephone mythos, and I would call it very much like a reimagine it. If I can find some non-spoiler examples of the type of art that you will see in the book, I'll have included it somewhere on the screen. And every single time I pick up one of these books, I just get absolutely sucked in to the story and the artwork, and like I just can't wait for another installment. I think it's going to be great, and I think I'm going to get sucked in again, and I can't ask for anything more. Then we have Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance, which is by Melissa K. Rorich and is the 3rd book in the Legacy series, which is also in the same world as the Lady of Darkness series, which I would recommend reading first. This comes out on October 31st and I can't wait. Honestly, I think Melissa K. Rorich is probably my favourite author. I will read literally anything she writes, but this series has me completely hooked. I don't know what to say about this series, because I really do think that you should read the Lady of Darkness series and then pick up the Legacy series, and that's what would make the most sense. So on the screen right now is a synopsis to the Lady of Darkness book 1. If you're interested, you can pause and read. And then also now I'll put up the synopsis of Legacy book 1, and if you're interested you can read that. These worlds are part of the same larger universe. You don't have to read one to understand the other, but I would personally recommend, to get the most enjoyment out of them, read Lady of Darkness, which is a completed series, and then read the Legacy series, which is not complete, but book 3 is coming out October 31st. Hopefully that will make sense. I wish I could say more and like honestly just like gush about this series more, but I can't imagine anything worse than getting spoiled and like potentially spoiling this for someone. So I think it's best just not to say anything at all. Just as a prelude, I guess, book 2 of this series is currently sat at my favourite book of this year spot, and I really feel like book 3 is potentially the only book throughout the rest of the year that I worry could knock it off. And I don't mean worry as in like worried, like it'd be great if a book knocked it off. I want to read more amazing books, but it's the only book that I feel like really has potential to knock it off because of how good book 2 was. So yeah, I would say it is a dark fantasy, an urban fantasy, a fantasy romance. It's those sort of genres. We deal with lots of different types of magic, lots of different hierarchies. It's a fantastic time, definitely would recommend, but I also recommend my personal preferred reading of Lady of Darkness then Legacy. Then we have one release that I'm excited for in November, and that is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. So this is book 3 in the Cranes of Nyaxa series, but it's also book 1 in the second duology of that series. So I believe timeline wise we are progressing, but that we'll be following completely new characters in this. And this comes out on November 21st. And to be perfectly honest, this is the only one on this list that I don't know if I will get to this year, mainly because these were originally indie published, which is how I started reading them, and then they got picked up traditionally. And when they got picked up traditionally, I decided not to pick them up straight away and hold out for the paperback. So the paperback of book 1 has now come out, but I've decided I want them all in paperback. And because this doesn't come out until, when is it, November 21st, I think the likelihood of this coming out in paperback before the end of the year is just extremely unlikely. I thought it was still worth mentioning. I am super excited about it. If it goes into my library, I'll probably read it earlier, and when the paperback comes out, I will definitely be reading it, and I will definitely read it as soon as it's available to me. In book 1 of the series, we follow 2 main characters in a tournament, and one of our main characters is human and the other is vampire. The vampires are in control in this world, and they are rivals, but have to form an alliance to try and win the tournament. And it's fantasy romance, so it goes from there. But the politics and the world building were both really interesting in this. And over the first 2 books they were interesting, but I definitely still feel like there's more to learn and there's more I'd like to learn. I'm not sure exactly where book 3 is going. I've read the synopsis and I think it's a completely new adventure in the same world. But it's been a while since I read book 2, and I'm not confident that we haven't met anyone or haven't had places and times and things mentioned. But I'm really excited to see how linked or how separate these books are, because when they were first announced, it was, you know, a 6-book series that is composed of 3 duologies, and I feel like, you know, until book 3 comes out, which is the second duology, it's really unknown just how linked or just how separate they're going to be and just how it's going to work. So yeah, really excited for it. And then finally, one that does not have a date yet, but I'm really hopeful will come out this year, and that is Truth of the Hollow by G.L. Preston. This is the 3rd and final book in the Stag and Hollow Chronicles. So this still just says coming soon. I think it might come out this year. So first of all, the image you're seeing, probably you can see at the bottom, says coming 2024. So that's like hopeful. That was announced at the start of the year. On the 3rd of April, in an Instagram post, the author said that she was in process of finishing, and earlier in the year it had been marked as 2024. But as of yet, there's no date, and the one thing that's making me think maybe it won't come out this year is currently there's still no book even as a placeholder on Goodreads, which also means there is no synopsis. But this is the final book in a series, and book 1, Prince of the Ancients, was amazing, and I can tell you the synopsis for that one. So this is the synopsis for book 1 in this series, which is Prince of the Ancients. In Tenebris, heir to the exiled kingdom, Draco Celesta offers to venture to the mortal realm to discover the cause of vicious attacks which have plagued the land and threaten his home. Maintaining his human form will be difficult whilst his irrational dragon fights to be freed, and he must master control to prevent war between the realms. But beyond his home, he will meet someone who pushes the limits of his patience. During their quest, Draco must place his trust in the mortals he accompanies, whilst the enigmatic Eli makes him question everything he's ever been taught. Though they have their differences, the future of the continent lies in their entwined fates, and the more time they spend together, the more Draco wants to uncover Eli's secrets, and the harder it becomes for Draco to hide his identity, until he cannot hide it anymore. Facing enemies, tragedy and an ancient entity brings them together, but their secrets may just tear them apart. Prince of the Ancients is an epic fantasy with a romance subplot that will leave you wanting more, and it was great. And book 2 added so much more to that. Book 2, like honestly, the main thing I remember about book 2 was the massive cliffhanger that it ends on, and I just, since then, I need book 3. Like I've read that at the end of last year, I think, and I still probably think about it weekly, the fact that that ended on a cliffhanger and I still don't know when book 3 is coming out. Yeah, it was really good. It added a lot more, and it also had that massive cliffhanger at the end, so I cannot wait for book 3. And those are all of my anticipated releases for the second half of 2024. Let me know down below what your most anticipated release of 2024 is, and also any new releases that you think I might be interested in, that you think I might have missed. If I had to pick, I would say my most anticipated release is probably Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance, just because I think that really does have the most likely chance of taking the top spot of books for the year, which is really, really exciting to think about. So yeah, I really do hope that you enjoyed the video. Please do give it a like if you like it, subscribe down below for more, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye. Ooh.